Hey, did all of your pets start out as roadkill? Do you show up to every funeral rocking an absolute banger? Well, congratulations! You might be a death cleric. But what is a death cleric? Well, get your obituaries ready, find your victims a fresh plot of dirt, and make sure you always dress like the Grim Reaper, because it's time to welcome...
Oh, Dad, won't you spare me over another?
You know, when I started this subclass series, I never thought I'd be talking about death this much. Grave clerics, undead warlocks, necromancers, phantom rogues, spirit bards, good googly, undead moogly. There must be something spooky in the water over there at Mages of the Marsh. But there's a big difference between playing with dead things like stapling bugs to the wall and outright making those things dead for fun. I mean, they both scream serial killer energy, but that's a whole other issue. You see, where other subclasses honor the act of passing on to the other side and protect those still on this one, or draw their power from the fantastical force of the phantasms, the Death Cleric is the only one who relishes in making living things not. You see, many Death Clerics don't have that much respect for the living, and tend to draw their power from those gods seeking to send you to the bad place. In short, they're pretty evil. Yeah, if it wasn't clear, most of these guys kinda suck to be around. Especially if they throw their blessings down to Baal or Merkel. Well, let's just say you probably want to be keeping your drinks to yourself to avoid being poisoned. But that doesn't mean a Death Cleric can't be useful, and although they have a bit of a Joker streak,
I'm the Joker, baby!
they can be a great ally to the party given the right circumstances. When dealing with the forces of good and evil, sometimes you need to meet somewhere in the middle, even if that middle has a thing for turning people into lampshades. It's an ugly world we live in, and no one understands the darkest parts of it better than the clerics who've swam those morally murky waters. So if you do have a Death Cleric on the team, try not to be too judgmental, get used to the smell of formaldehyde, and try to sleep with one eye open, or else you might just not wake up. But first, do you love world building and just can't get enough? Are you obsessed with board games but hate that they don't go into the unique intricacies of grain consumption? Well, then you need to try Forge of Empires and their new welcome event available on your browser right now. Forge of Empires is the only place where you can manage a city's economy, optimize your resources, and join a guild with your friends, or build your army to take on opponents and conquer the continents through turn-based tactics. But there has never been a better time to try Forge of Empires because their event happening right now lets you play your game on an all-new board, where you'll receive 150 raffle tickets and 2 golden dice throws. Newcomers will also get 25 Forge points, 1,000 coins, 1,000 supplies, and much more. So scan that QR code on screen or hit the link below and hammer out some fun with Forge of Empires. A big thanks to Forge of Empires for sponsoring the show. And now, back to the video. So you want to learn how to get more creative kills than a cheap 80s action movie. How would you get started? Well, as a cleric, you usually find your powers through your devotion to a god, so make sure you pick the right one. Are you a big fan of maiming or pain? Well, how about use or Leviatar be your main? Or maybe you prefer a little good old-fashioned disease or poison? Well, then Telonia or Encabulos are just fabulous. Or maybe you just have a thing for the underworld. Well, you can impress the ladies with your bond to Hades. Or hell, why not devote yourself to the big bad boy Merkel? You know that sexy mug will make you want to twerkle. Anyway, whoever you choose, there's not too many good guys on the list, so you'll probably be selling your soul just a little bit to earn their favor. Honoring these deities is dark work, and there's not a whole lot of room for friends since, you know, you might have to kill them. So instead, we'll grab the tools to dispense of enemies quickly and fill the armies of your chosen bad bitch down there in the realms of the damned. Which means we immediately get proficiency in martial weapons, which is nice for a fighting type spellcaster, and allows you to carry around longswords or crossbows to send your victims to their makers holier than Swiss cheese. But spellcasting will still be our bread and butter, and even though we walk a darker path than our cleric brethren, we still get access to all those great cleric spells plus a little something extra. As a reaper, we get an additional necromancy cantrip from any spell list, which would be amazing if there were a few more choices. However, grabbing Chill Touch or Toll the Dead are great options for laying on that harsh necrotic damage, and you also get the ability to target an additional creature with the spell as long as they are within 5 feet of the original target, not only doubling your damage output, but helping you clear hordes like an absolute monster. We also of course get domain spells, which means a ton of spooky options for our spooky lad, starting with False Life. As the saying goes, the good die young. So we'll keep on living by giving ourselves temporary hit points anytime we're in a pinch. And of course, Ray of Sickness, which lets you shoot a beam of poison damage and poisons foes that fail the con save with a certified barf laser. But that'll send us straight to second level where we get our channel divinities. And while Turn Undead is nice for making sure any zombies know who's really the death god's favorite, Touch of Death is really where it's at. Now anytime we hit with a melee attack, we can spend a channel divinity to attack directly at the foe's life force. This attack will then deal an extra 5 plus twice your cleric level in necrotic damage. And while that might not sound like much now, 40 plus damage on a single hit is nasty in big battles later on. Now I know what you're thinking, we're a cleric, this sword is mostly for show. We don't actually hit stuff with it, but my dear sweet dum-dum, you didn't read the fine print. A melee attack includes melee spell attacks, which means all we have to do is grab a few cleric spells that do just that. Inflict wounds? Hell yes. Spiritual weapon? Oh, now we're talking. And this move gets even better and better as we level up. So strap in for some dastardly fun as we give folks the final send-off faster than an anti-vaxxer who just put their kids in preschool. Was that too dark? I don't care. Third level means second level spells because this game is stupid, but blindness deafness does exactly what you think, forcing a baddie, or more likely a goodie, to lose their eyes or ears on a failed con save. And Ray of Enfeeblement makes your opponent very weak as you make them lose effectiveness on a bunch of strength-based stuff. But just think of it as a kindness. At least you allowed them to experience what it was like to be old before you ended them prematurely, right? We're the murder cleric, come on, get over it. But that jumps us right up to 5th level where our Turn Undead becomes Destroy Undead. Really useful for those poltergeists that keep up the back chat, which also gets us to 2 more domain spells. Animate Dead is the perfect tool for you to keep up with those pesky necromancers, allowing you to take control of a corpse and use it as your very own undead servant. They aren't really smart and they smell awful, but they listen to all your commands and act as great fodder so you can avoid getting hurt. But I'm really here for Vampiric Touch. This move is mean, allowing you to drain an enemy of their life essence and drink it in for yourself. On a melee spell attack, you deal 3d6 necrotic damage, regaining half as much in hit points. And you can keep this up until you lose concentration. But that also means you can puppet with a Channel Divinity Touch of Death to deal 3d6 plus 15 at this level, and that just keeps going up.
Now that's a lot of damage!
But if that wasn't enough, we'll also get Inescapable Destruction at 6th level, letting you ignore resistances and necrotic damage, so even the undead legions get sent right back to hell. 2 more domain spells at level 7 with Blight and Death Ward, a great way to deal a shit ton of damage at once or save yourself from a near-death experience. Divine Strikes or Blessed Strikes at level 8 for more damage on weapon attacks or cantrips depending on your preferred playstyle, but I think cantrips are probably more your speed. And level 9 means our last 2 domain spells with Anti-Life Shell, a fantastic spell for keeping these life-craving plebeians off of you, creating a 10-foot bubble that only allows your undead friends through, though you can still cast spells out of the bubble to finish victims off quickly. But finally we get Cloud Kill, the most silent and deadly spell in the game, sending a 20-foot sphere of poisonous fog into an area, dealing poison damage and blinding targets in the cloud, which again is a kindness. Why would they want to witness what happens to their friends? Which sends us to our most coveted cleric ability, Divine Intervention. Now, usually a cleric will use this to ask their god for a cleric spell, or to help them build a temple to their god's honor. They might ask for goodwill, or food, or a blessing for a friend, but our gods aren't really into that kind of stuff. So instead, we kind of need to be creative, and you can use this ability as like a death note or voodoo doll to strike people down from afar by asking our deity to cast some crazy shit on them. It's not always gonna work, but a 10% chance of smiting your noisy neighbor upstairs just by saying pretty please is a very death cleric thing to do. But we'll travel all the way up to our final death cleric ability at level 17, and sure, there's some nice spells along the way, including plenty of healing spells that we can ignore, until we finally become an improved reaper. Now, anytime you cast a necromancy spell 1st through 5th level, you can also target an additional creature within 5 feet of the first. This includes spells like Inflict Wounds, Contagion, and Bestow Curse, but even things like Revivify or Raise Dead if you feel like being nice, I guess. But since we'd need double the diamonds to cast this, well, just don't count on it. which means we'll round off at level 20 with perfect divine intervention, meaning anytime we ask our god for help, it will automatically succeed. We just have to make sure we don't get caught.
I'll take a potato chip and eat it.
But does the Death Domain Cleric have us dead to rights? Whew, buddy, this cleric is a bad mamma jamma. The Death Cleric can be really mean in the right hands, and there's tons of ways to deal solid damage without a ton of downsides. The martial stuff is fun, but I think it can kind of be ignored, instead relying on melee spell attacks. And with spells like Spiritual Weapon or taking the Metamagic Adept feat for distance spell, you should rarely have to get that close to actually pull it off. I also like that multi-classing with this cleric is simple, and dipping into Necromancer or going hard into a damage dealing martial like Assassin Rogue or Oathbreaker Paladin can catapult your damage dealing to some absurd levels. You are very familiar with the feeling of death, and I like the concept of a dangerous cleric. Most of the time these guys feel a little bit like the healing machine in D&D, and a change from that is welcome, needless to say. If I did have a complaint, I do wish the variety of domain spells was just a little bit better. You'll have some great combos with like Inflict Wounds and Vampiric Touch and Spiritual Weapon, but I think the rest are a little bit lackluster. Also, I mean, you should definitely get access to Power Word Kill. I don't know how you missed that, that's a no-brainer. But all in all, the Death Domain Cleric is super strong, super spooky, and a lot of fun in the right campaign. I can of course see a cringier player going over the top and possibly trying to kill their own party because their god said so, quote unquote, but a smart player who either knows that a Death Cleric can hide their true nature or at least team up with a good party to accomplish a goal can make an evil or at least evil adjacent cleric work. And I personally love the doors that opens. But if you've ever bribed a groundskeeper so you can add the best corpses to your collection, have most likely done worse shit than the arch-villain of your campaign, and have written down every euphemism for death from worm food to ate it, beefed it, toes up, belly up, stiff, 6 feet under, bit the dust, bought the farm, dead as a doornail, popped the clogs, cashed the chips, sticky in, went bung, pushed up daisies and kicked the bucket, guess what? You might be a Death Cleric. Hey guys, I can't thank you all enough for watching. By the time this video is out, my very own module, The Tournament of Champions, should be just around the corner on my Patreon, and for a limited time, you can get that for just $1. I put a ton of work into this adventure, and the whole thing is like 30 pages with events and battles, a mystery, and a crazy plot, and so much more, so I really hope you give it a try. After a month, that will jump up to the $5 tier, so be sure to hop onto the Patreon before it's too late, and I hope to be adding way more stuff there as we keep going. I'll also be creating a community note with even more information, so be looking out for that. And of course, I can't forget all my current patrons who get a copy of that right away, with those top-tiered patrons who get games DM'd by me. So to those cool cats, Spider Lover, King Osiris, Sorisen, Tedzy, and Miles Not Yards, you guys are the best, and I can't wait until next session. But until next time, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you very soon.